Hi there. Welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Charleen. Charleen says, I've been studying this course off and on for a while. I'm slowly getting some of the ideas, and I really liked your analogy of the inflatable ball with pinholes. That was where there's like a beach ball that's floating, and it gets these little pinpricks in it, and it kind of takes a while to get to the bottom of the pool. And I was talking about that with regard to kind of how, we get these little pinpricks in how the world looks and our model of life and our identity, but it doesn't all just fall to the bottom right away. It can take a little bit of time to kind of slowly sink. So she says, recently I've been focused on my husband's annoying habits, and I find myself falling into my old habits by the end of the day. Any hints on how I can shift my focus? I keep thinking it's right under my nose, and some days I get it, but lately it feels like I'm sliding backwards. So I don't know that it's a shift in focus so much, Charleen, as maybe seeing kind of what's going on here. So when you say you're focused on your husband's annoying habits, I assume that isn't something that you're trying to do or that you are doing on purpose. If it is, I wouldn't suggest it. There's no amount of you focusing on his annoying habits that's going to be helpful to either of you at all. And you don't take my word for that, but you try that on yourself and see if that resonates, that he might have be doing all kinds of things that are not helpful or not good for him or whatever, but your focus on them, I would say, only brings the whole thing down. There's no good reason for that. Now, our mind just does it, right? So I know we don't need a good reason. We don't need a reason at all. Sometimes that's just where our mind is drawn to their habits. So just notice that. If that's more of how it's going, if you're not doing this on purpose to try to help, but you just notice your mind drawn to his annoying habits over and over and over again, all there is to do there is see that happening. Again, from a place of knowing this isn't necessary, this isn't helpful, this isn't doing anything positive. I'm not even doing it. My mind's just getting drug over to his habits. There's no good reason for it. It's just something that happens. It's just like you have hiccups. Okay, there's just hiccuping happening. Okay, my mind keeps getting drawn over there. But when you notice it in that way, when you watch this movement happen and you see it happening in that way, and you know there's nothing behind it, nothing helpful, no meaning behind it, that helps a ton. It starts to look different. It starts to look like totally impersonal, not about you, not about him and his unhelpful habits, just a movement of focus. And focus and what comes into our awareness is always moving and changing. So you just want to kind of see that happening. Again, not from a place of trying to make sense of it, because it doesn't make sense. And it's happening involuntarily. So it's not a place of blaming or even refocusing or shifting. Just watch what happens. So when you say, how can I shift my focus? I think maybe that's what you mean, is how can you stop focusing on his stuff? I wouldn't suggest getting in there and noticing that you're focused on his annoying habits and then trying to think something else. I would just see it happening. See that your mind goes there. Maybe they'll come up in your attention and your consciousness, and then your mind will go somewhere else, and then it'll go somewhere else. But again, a lot of this is seeing that there's no reason for it. There's nothing behind it. It's not helpful. It's not needed. And as it starts to look like that, there's just so much less attention. Like, it doesn't even matter. It not even deserving of a shift in focus, really, because it's completely irrelevant. It's meaningless. It's inconsequential. It just doesn't matter. And that's what I think really, really helps. When there's just nothing to it, then the mind just stops doing it. It just couldn't care less anymore. When there's no energy or meaning or story behind it. Even the how do I shift my focus and stop doing this is giving it a lot of importance. You see that? It's giving it a lot of energy, a lot of like power. Like, oh, this is important and it's going here and I don't want it to go here and I want my attention to go here. It's too much. Way too much attention and credit to something that's like a hiccup. It's like saying, how do I stop my hiccups? What do I do instead when I have a hiccup? You just go on with your life and eventually they go away. So that's key. That's really the big thing that I want you to see in this. And then I just think it's interesting when you say, your focus is there on his habits, and then you find yourself falling into your own habits by the end of the day. And that makes perfect sense, right? Because when your focus is over on something that appears to you to be very annoying, and that, because his habits feel annoying, because you don't want your focus there, you're thinking about, how do I shift it? I shouldn't be even thinking about this. I shouldn't be focusing there. That's a lot of stuff going on for you. And when we feel weighed down by thought that looks true and all of that feeling, then our mind comes in to suggest a habit to distract from that, to be our pacifier against all that stuff that's coming up. So really, it's one and the same. And it makes perfect sense that your habits come up when you don't feel well, because that's all that is. You're focused somewhere that your mind is calling annoying, and that saying you shouldn't be focused here. And then that weighs on you. And then your habit is just a solution to feeling that heaviness. So the whole thing will start to crumble as you just see, okay, mind, thought just shows up however it shows up. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't require anything on me. Has nothing to do with my husband. Has nothing to do with habits. His or mine. Has nothing to do with anything. It's just stuff that shows up, and there's nothing more behind it. That's the major pinhole. That's the big pinprick in the whole thing that leads the whole thing to start to deflate. So I hope that's helpful. Keep listening. I know you're kind of newer to this, and it's awesome that you're studying it, looking in this direction, being curious, inquiring into thought and just how this all works, watching, like I said, your attention naturally shift, being really curious about what if none of this means anything and I don't need it. It's not helpful. Like we don't need it to get by. We're lived beyond all of this. It really starts to have all of that thinking stuff just look really, really different. So thanks so much for sending your question. Send your questions to askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'll be back next Monday to answer them. Thanks, everyone.